How to move from procrastination to action. Break the cycle of delay and learn how to start, even when you don't feel ready. By T.M. Light. Description: break free from procrastination and unlock your true potential with this empowering guide. It shows you how to overcome fear, self-doubt and perfectionism to start taking consistent action, even when motivation is low. Learn practical strategies to break tasks into micro-steps, build supportive habits, manage energy and focus, and recover quickly from setbacks. Transform your inner dialogue, design an environment that fosters productivity, and align daily action with your purpose. Perfect for anyone ready to stop delaying, gain momentum, and turn intention into results. Take control, act decisively, and become the action taker you were meant to be. Chapter outline. Introduction: Understanding the procrastination trap. Chapter 1: Identifying your procrastination patterns. Chapter 2: Understanding the emotional roots of delay. Chapter 3: Breaking tasks into startable steps. Chapter 4: Reframing motivation and willpower. Chapter 5: Overcoming fear of failure and judgment. Chapter 6: Creating a supportive environment. Chapter 7: Building consistency through habits. Chapter 8: Managing time and energy wisely. Chapter 9: Learning to restart after setbacks. Chapter 10: Sustaining action over the long term. Conclusion: You are an action taker now. Introduction: Understanding the procrastination trap. Procrastination is one of the most common struggles we face, yet it is often misunderstood. You might tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I work better under pressure," believing these statements are harmless or even strategic. But deep down, you know that delaying action has a cost. That unfinished project, that delayed phone call, that goal that seems just out of reach, they weigh on your mind, quietly draining your energy, your confidence, and your sense of control. Procrastination is not just putting off a task. It is a pattern that silently shapes your life, your choices, and your self-perception. To break free from procrastination, we first need to understand it, not as a moral failing, not as laziness, and certainly not as evidence that you are weak or incapable, but as a psychological habit that has developed over time. At its core, procrastination is often driven by fear. Fear of failing, fear of not being good enough, fear of criticism. When you sit down to work on a task, your brain may perceive it as a threat to your self-image. If there is a risk, real or imagined, of embarrassment or disappointment, the mind instinctively tries to protect you by finding a way to avoid that discomfort. It whispers excuses, justifications, and distractions to steer you away from potential pain. It is not personal, it is a survival mechanism. Your mind wants to keep you safe, even if that safety comes at the cost of your goals and dreams. Perfectionism is another powerful driver of procrastination. You may notice that you delay starting a task because you are waiting for the perfect moment or striving to do it flawlessly. The problem is, perfection is an illusion. Waiting for perfect conditions, perfect timing, or perfect clarity will keep you stalled indefinitely. The mind equates action with imperfection, and imperfection feels risky, uncomfortable, and even threatening. So you delay. You push the task aside, telling yourself you'll start when everything aligns, when the stars are in the right position, when you finally feel ready. But readiness is often a mirage, and the longer you wait, the more momentum slips away. Overwhelm compounds this effect. When a task feels too big, too complex, or too undefined, it becomes easy to avoid. Your brain responds to large, ambiguous tasks with the same protective mechanism as fear, avoidance. You may scroll through your phone, reorganize your desk, or busy yourself with smaller, less important tasks, convincing yourself that you are productive. The reality, however, is that you are giving your energy to avoidance rather than action. Over time, this pattern becomes a cycle. Delay leads to stress. Stress reinforces avoidance. Avoidance magnifies fear. And fear perpetuates procrastination. The consequences of procrastination are often more significant than we admit. Each delay comes with opportunity costs, things you could have accomplished, relationships you could have nurtured, experiences you could have embraced. It creates a persistent undercurrent of anxiety, guilt, and self-judgment. You know what you should be doing, yet you cannot seem to start. Your mind becomes a battlefield where motivation, fear, and self-criticism compete for dominance. The frustration is compounded when you see others moving forward while you remain stuck in hesitation. You might begin to label yourself as lazy, undisciplined, or incapable. But none of these labels capture the truth. Procrastination is not a reflection of your character. It is a learned habit that can be unlearned. This book is designed to guide you out of that trap. Its purpose is simple: to help you move from delay to action, from hesitation to momentum, from resistance to consistency. You will discover why you procrastinate, yes, but more importantly, you will learn strategies to start, even when you do not feel ready, and to continue even when motivation wavers. You will learn to take control of your mind, to quiet the excuses, and to transform fear, perfectionism, and overwhelm into fuel for decisive action. By reading and applying the principles in this book, you will begin to see procrastination differently. You will understand it as a signal, a sign of discomfort, resistance, or misalignment, not as a verdict on your ability. You will learn to treat procrastination with curiosity and strategy rather than self-criticism. You will discover that momentum is built not by waiting for inspiration, but by starting where you are, taking the first small step, and allowing progress to compound over time. Throughout the chapters ahead, you will explore practical tools to dismantle the barriers that keep you stuck. You will learn how to identify the thoughts and feelings that trigger delay, break tasks into actionable steps, manage your energy and focus, and cultivate habits that make consistent action automatic. You will practice strategies to move through fear, reduce overwhelm, and build resilience when setbacks occur. And you will come to see that motivation is not a prerequisite for action. It is a byproduct of starting, continuing, and succeeding. Perhaps most importantly, this book will help you reclaim your confidence. Each step you take toward action reinforces your ability to control your behavior, to trust your judgment, and to align with your goals. As procrastination loses its grip, you will experience a profound shift. The anxiety and guilt that once accompanied delay will give way to clarity, purpose, and satisfaction. You will discover that the power to act is not reserved for the extraordinarily disciplined or the eternally motivated. It is available to anyone willing to understand themselves, apply practical strategies, and practice courage, starting now. So take a deep breath. Let go of the idea that you must feel ready before you begin. The work ahead is not about transforming overnight, it is about learning to start, learning to persist, and learning to build momentum step by step. Procrastination is not a life sentence. It is a habit, a pattern, and a temporary state. And like any habit, it can be changed. By the end of this journey, you will know how to turn hesitation into action, fear into focus, and overwhelm into clarity. You are about to embark on a path that will change the way you approach tasks, goals, and even your life. The principles you learn here are tools you can apply immediately, regardless of your current situation or level of motivation. Each chapter will equip you to understand procrastination, confront it strategically, and take meaningful action. And with each action you will feel the power and satisfaction of progress, the kind of momentum that transforms hesitation into achievement, delay into confidence, and inaction into purpose. This is the moment to break the cycle. This is the moment to step into action. Procrastination may have held you back in the past, but it does not define you. You are capable, resourceful, and ready to reclaim your time, energy, and confidence. By reading this book, you have taken the first step. Now let's take the next and the one after that, until starting and completing becomes your new default. The journey begins here. Chapter 1: Identifying your procrastination patterns. Procrastination is not just a behavior, it is a reflection of the patterns that run quietly behind the scenes of your mind. It is a signal, a guide, and for many, a habitual response that you may not even notice until the consequences become undeniable. The first step in breaking free from procrastination is awareness. Before you can change a habit, you must understand it. Before you can reclaim your time, energy, and confidence, you must recognize the hidden triggers that keep you stuck. This chapter is about shining a light on those patterns and helping you understand yourself in ways that will transform hesitation into action. Why do we procrastinate? On the surface, it may seem simple. We delay tasks because we don't feel like doing them. But beneath that surface lie complex psychological drivers that influence every choice, every avoidance, and every moment of delay. One of the most powerful drivers is the avoidance of discomfort. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Tasks that are difficult, unpleasant, or anxiety-inducing are naturally perceived as threats. The discomfort might be physical, like sitting through a long meeting or completing a tedious report, or emotional, such as the vulnerability of sharing an idea or risking failure. When faced with these uncomfortable situations, your mind instinctively searches for ways to escape. Scrolling your phone, organizing your desk, checking email, these distractions are not just bad habits. They are the brain's way of protecting you from perceived risk, a subtle act of self-preservation that paradoxically keeps you from achieving your goals. Fear of failure is another powerful procrastination driver. Imagine a task that matters deeply to you, something that, if completed, could move you closer to your dreams. And yet, a voice in your head whispers, "What if I mess this up? What if it's not good enough?" That voice is fear manifesting as hesitation. Fear magnifies the stakes of the task, inflates potential negative outcomes, and convinces you that delay is safer than risk. Ironically, the very act of procrastination increases the likelihood of failure, not because you are incapable, but because delay erodes preparation, clarity, and confidence. Yet fear alone is not always conscious. Often it hides under layers of rationalization. "I work better under pressure," or "I'll start tomorrow when I have more time." These are subtle disguises that allow procrastination to feel acceptable, even justified. Indecision also fuels delay. When choices feel overwhelming or the path forward is unclear, the mind freezes. This paralysis is rooted in uncertainty, a fear of making the wrong decision, a fear of commitment, or a fear of regretting the choice later. Indecision is often accompanied by overthinking, where every potential scenario is weighed, every risk analyzed, and every possible outcome imagined. Ironically, the act of overthinking is itself a form of procrastination, a way to feel productive while avoiding real progress. You tell yourself that planning, researching, or imagining outcomes counts as work, but in reality, it is the mind's clever way of postponing discomfort and protecting itself from perceived threats. To break free from procrastination, the first tool you need is awareness. You must identify your unique patterns, recognize the triggers, and observe the internal dialogue that leads to delay. This is where self-observation becomes powerful. Begin by paying attention to your behavior. Ask yourself, when do I procrastinate most? What tasks do I avoid and why? What emotions arise when I think about these tasks? Perhaps you delay writing reports because the idea of critique terrifies you, or maybe you avoid exercise because the effort feels too uncomfortable. By noticing these triggers without judgment, you start to understand the why behind the behavior, which is critical for creating lasting change. Journaling is a practical way to uncover these hidden patterns. When you write down your experiences, thoughts, and feelings surrounding procrastination, you externalize the internal dialogue. Journaling turns the vague, often unconscious patterns into concrete observations. For example, you might notice that every time you attempt a challenging task, you feel a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, or a sudden urge to check social media. These physical and emotional signals are your mind's way of alerting you to the habitual avoidance patterns that keep you stuck. Recording them consistently allows you to identify recurring themes, emotional triggers, and even specific times or environments that exacerbate procrastination. Self-observation is not just about identifying what you avoid, it's about understanding how you justify it to yourself. Pay attention to the stories your mind tells when you delay action. You might hear thoughts like, "I need more information before I start," or "I'll do it later because I deserve a break." While these thoughts may feel reasonable, they often mask deeper resistance. By noticing these rationalizations, you begin to distinguish between genuine prioritization and procrastination disguised as necessity. The more clearly you can see this distinction, the easier it becomes to intervene and redirect your energy toward action. Another key element in identifying procrastination patterns is recognizing the role of habits and routines. Often, procrastination is not a conscious choice, but an automatic response. Perhaps you always check your phone before starting a task, linger over coffee, or rearrange your workspace. These habitual behaviors create friction, making it harder to begin meaningful work. Awareness allows you to disrupt these automatic loops. Once you see the patterns, you can create new routines that support starting rather than delaying. Awareness is the spark that ignites change. Understanding your triggers also helps you anticipate challenges before they arise. For instance, if you notice that you procrastinate most on creative projects, you can prepare strategies in advance, breaking the task into smaller pieces, setting strict time limits, or creating accountability systems. If social interactions or emails trigger avoidance, you can schedule specific windows for these tasks and remove distractions during high-focus periods. Anticipation reduces the element of surprise, which in turn reduces anxiety, hesitation, and the likelihood of delay. Identifying procrastination patterns is not about self-blame. In fact, a compassionate approach is essential. The goal is not to label yourself as lazy or incapable, but to observe yourself as a scientist would observe an experiment, with curiosity, patience, and openness. You are gathering data about how your mind responds under certain conditions, what triggers delay, and which habits reinforce avoidance. This perspective shifts the process from criticism to understanding, creating the mental space necessary for transformation. Procrastination is a signal, not a verdict. It is information about where you need support, structure, or courage, not proof that you are flawed. As you develop this awareness, you may begin to notice patterns that surprise you. Perhaps procrastination is tied to perfectionism, fear of failure, or avoidance of discomfort in ways you hadn't realized. Maybe it surfaces only in certain contexts, like work, creative projects, or personal goals. By mapping out these patterns, you create a foundation for the next steps, strategies to break the cycle, small actions that build momentum, and habits that make starting natural. Awareness is the first bridge between inertia and action, between delay and momentum. Without it, any attempt to act will feel like pushing against resistance in the dark. With it, every step becomes deliberate, intentional, and powerful. Finally, it is important to remember that awareness is not a one-time activity, it is an ongoing practice. The mind evolves, circumstances change, and new triggers emerge. Regular reflection, journaling, and self-observation ensure that you continue to notice the patterns before they derail your progress. Over time, awareness itself becomes a habit, creating a self-reinforcing loop. You notice, you intervene, you act, and action reinforces confidence. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to identify the early signs of procrastination and redirect your energy before delay sets in. By the end of this chapter, you should have a clear understanding of your personal procrastination patterns, your emotional triggers, and the habitual behaviors that keep you stuck. Awareness is your superpower. It is the lens that allows you to see procrastination not as an obstacle, but as a guide, a map highlighting exactly where change is needed. When you observe without judgment, when you journal your patterns, when you notice the emotional and cognitive cues that precede delay, you are laying the groundwork for the next stages of transformation, breaking tasks into startable steps, reframing motivation, embracing discomfort, and building momentum that will carry you through challenges. The path from procrastination to action begins here, with awareness, curiosity, and self-compassion. You are learning to see procrastination clearly, to understand it deeply, and to approach it strategically. This understanding will allow you to act decisively, confidently, and consistently. Every small observation, every note in your journal, and every moment of reflection is a step away from delay and toward the life you want to live, a life in which starting is easier, progress is steady, and procrastination no longer dictates your choices. The journey ahead is practical, actionable, and transformational. You now have the first tool in your arsenal, insight into your patterns. Use it. Observe yourself, reflect and document your experiences. The more clarity you gain, the stronger your foundation becomes. With awareness as your guide, you can take deliberate steps to break the cycle of procrastination, build momentum, and reclaim control over your life. The trap is no longer invisible. You have the map, and the journey to consistent action begins now. Chapter 2: Understanding the Emotional Roots of Delay. Procrastination is rarely about laziness or poor time management. At its core, it is emotional. It is driven by feelings that tug at your mind and body, often without your conscious awareness. You may think you are delaying a task because of lack of discipline or not having enough time, but the truth is more subtle, more complex, and far more powerful. Your emotions are the engine of your behavior. They shape your choices, influence your habits, and determine whether you start or stall. To move from procrastination to action, you must first understand these emotional forces and learn to work with them, not against them. Fear is one of the most potent emotional roots of procrastination. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. These fears are deeply wired into the human psyche. When you face a task that challenges your abilities or exposes you to criticism, your brain interprets it as a threat. Fear triggers avoidance because it signals potential discomfort, embarrassment, or loss. Even when the stakes are relatively low, your mind amplifies the risk, presenting reasons to delay. You tell yourself, "I'm not ready yet," or "I need more time to prepare." But often, this preparation is a clever mask for avoidance, a way to protect yourself from the emotional sting of trying and possibly failing. Fear manifests in many forms. It can appear as hesitation at the start of a project, an inability to make decisions, or even physical tension in your body, a tight chest, racing heart, or shallow breathing. You may feel restless, distracted, or compelled to busy yourself with unrelated tasks. These reactions are not a sign of weakness. They are your nervous system's way of signaling that a challenge is approaching. Understanding this emotional signal is the first step toward transforming it from a roadblock into a guide. Fear does not have to paralyze you. When acknowledged and understood, it can become a compass pointing you toward areas where growth, courage, and action are needed most. Anxiety often accompanies fear, intensifying the procrastination cycle. Anxiety arises when your mind anticipates negative outcomes, magnifies potential risks, and dwells on uncertainties. You might find yourself ruminating over what-ifs, imagining worst-case scenarios, and worrying about consequences that may never happen. This mental chatter is exhausting and overwhelming, and it feeds the urge to delay. The paradox is clear: the more you procrastinate, the greater the anxiety becomes, which in turn makes starting even harder. It is a self-reinforcing loop that can feel impossible to break. But the key is awareness. By recognizing anxiety as a signal rather than a verdict, you can create space to act despite discomfort. Perfectionism is another emotional driver of procrastination. Perfectionists often delay action because the task feels too important to risk doing imperfectly. Every detail must be flawless, every outcome ideal, and every step precise. The pressure to meet these impossible standards triggers hesitation. You may find yourself endlessly revising, overthinking, or postponing, simply because the task cannot meet your internal ideal. The irony is that perfectionism, while intended to ensure success, almost guarantees delay and stress. Recognizing the emotional root of perfectionism allows you to shift perspective. Action, progress, and learning are more valuable than flawlessness. Imperfection becomes a tool for growth, not a threat to your self-worth. Self-doubt fuels both fear and perfectionism, creating an invisible wall between intention and action. That quiet, insidious voice, "I can't do this, I'm not capable, others will see I'm not good enough," undermines confidence and magnifies hesitation. Self-doubt often masquerades as rational thought, convincing you that postponement is wise, safe, or strategic. Negative self-talk does more than delay action. It erodes belief in your abilities and fosters emotional tension that makes starting feel exhausting. To overcome procrastination, you must first recognize the inner critic for what it is, a conditioned voice that speaks from fear and habit, not fact. Awareness of this voice is the first step to regaining control. So how do you work with these emotions without letting them control you? The answer lies in acknowledgement and presence. Emotions are signals, not commands. They are messages your mind sends to draw attention to something important or uncomfortable. The first step is to observe them without judgment. When fear, anxiety, or self-doubt arises, pause and name it. "I notice fear," or "I am feeling anxious about this task." Naming emotions creates a separation between feeling and action. You are no longer controlled by the emotion, you are aware of it, which allows choice. Awareness is not denial. It is not suppression. It is the conscious recognition that emotions exist, that they have purpose, and that you can act even in their presence. Another powerful technique is emotional journaling. When you record your thoughts and feelings about tasks you delay, you externalize the internal chatter. You may notice patterns. Certain projects trigger more anxiety, certain situations spark fear of judgment, or specific types of decisions lead to self-doubt. Journaling creates clarity. It turns vague, swirling emotions into concrete observations. Over time, this clarity allows you to anticipate emotional responses, prepare strategies to address them, and reduce the influence of fear, anxiety, and perfectionism on your behavior. Visualization is another tool to manage emotional resistance. Imagine yourself beginning a task despite fear, working steadily through challenges, and completing it successfully. Visualization trains your brain to experience action emotionally before physically engaging in it. It reduces the power of fear by creating familiarity with progress and success. When combined with small, startable steps, tasks broken down into manageable pieces, the technique becomes even more effective. You mentally rehearse action, which diminishes resistance and builds confidence, making real-world execution easier. Breathing techniques and mindfulness practices are also effective in managing the emotional roots of procrastination. When fear or anxiety spikes, your body responds with tension, shallow breathing, and increased heart rate. By focusing on slow, deliberate breaths or brief mindfulness exercises, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's relaxation response. This physiological shift reduces emotional intensity, clears mental clutter, and creates a calm state in which action becomes possible. It is not about eliminating emotion, it is about regulating it so that fear and anxiety inform rather than control your behavior. It is also essential to recognize that emotional resistance often signals that a task is meaningful. Tasks that provoke fear, discomfort, or self-doubt are usually those that have the potential to create growth, transformation, or significant impact. In this way, procrastination can be reframed as a signal pointing to areas of life where courage and focus are most needed. Instead of seeing fear as a barrier, view it as an indicator of importance. Emotional resistance is the compass pointing you toward what matters. When you understand this, the act of starting becomes not just a mechanical choice, but an intentional step toward growth. Finally, compassion is critical in working with emotional triggers. Negative emotions often carry an undercurrent of self-criticism. You may feel shame for procrastinating, frustration at your delay, or guilt for not meeting expectations. Responding with harshness only strengthens procrastination patterns. Instead, approach yourself with curiosity and kindness. Recognize that procrastination is a habit developed over time, reinforced by emotion, and fueled by conditioned thought patterns. Treat yourself as you would a friend learning a new skill, with patience, understanding, and encouragement. Compassion reduces the emotional weight of hesitation, making action easier and more sustainable. By the end of this chapter, you should have a clear understanding that procrastination is emotional, not rational. Fear, anxiety, perfectionism, and self-doubt are not enemies. They are signals, guideposts, and opportunities for insight. When acknowledged, observed, and regulated, these emotions lose their power to control your behavior. You can act in their presence, not in spite of them. Awareness, journaling, visualization, mindfulness, and self-compassion are tools that allow you to navigate emotional resistance with clarity, courage, and purpose. The journey from procrastination to action begins here, with recognition and understanding of your emotional landscape. Every delay, every moment of hesitation, is not a failure. It is a message. By learning to listen to that message, observe it, and respond intentionally, you reclaim your power. Emotional resistance transforms from a barrier into a guide, showing exactly where focus, courage, and action are needed. Fear becomes a signal, anxiety becomes information, and self-doubt becomes a checkpoint rather than a stop sign. When you can act with awareness and compassion, you move from hesitation into momentum, from delay into decisive action, and from procrastination into progress. This is the foundation for the chapters to come. Understanding your emotional roots allows you to implement strategies for breaking tasks into startable steps, reframing motivation, embracing discomfort, and building habits that make action automatic. Emotional awareness transforms your relationship with procrastination from struggle into strategy. You are no longer at the mercy of fear or anxiety. You are learning to act despite them, to harness them, and to let them guide you toward growth. And with this understanding, you are ready to take deliberate steps toward consistent, empowered action. Chapter 3: Breaking Tasks into Startable Steps. One of the most common reasons we procrastinate is because the task feels too big. A mountain of work stands before us, and we do not know where to begin. The mind recoils in the face of ambiguity, complexity, and the unknown. A large project, a long-term goal, or even a simple but unfamiliar task can trigger overwhelm, anxiety, and hesitation. This is where procrastination thrives, not in laziness but in the perception of difficulty. Complexity paralyzes, while clarity empowers. The key to moving from delay to action is to break the task down into startable steps, small, manageable, and specific actions that create momentum. Imagine standing at the base of a massive staircase, looking up at hundreds of steps that seem to stretch endlessly into the sky. The sight is intimidating. Your mind may respond with thoughts like, "I'll never get to the top," or "maybe I shouldn't even try." But what if you stop looking at the staircase as a whole, and focus only on the very next step? That first step is not intimidating. It is achievable. It is something you can do right now. And once you take it, the next step becomes visible, manageable, and approachable. The same principle applies to any task, goal, or project. By focusing on the next small action instead of the overwhelming whole, you lower resistance, reduce anxiety, and make starting inevitable. Large, vague tasks create a unique form of mental friction. When a task is undefined, your brain cannot easily map a course of action. Write a report feels monumental because the endpoint is far, the scope is uncertain, and the first move is unclear. This uncertainty triggers hesitation. The brain interprets the task as risky or uncomfortable, and you instinctively avoid it. By contrast, when the task is broken down into discrete steps, open a blank document, write an outline for section 1, draft 3 bullet points for the introduction, the brain recognizes each action as achievable. The steps are no longer abstract or threatening. They are tangible, immediate, and within your control. Breaking tasks into startable steps also reduces the emotional load. Large tasks often trigger fear, self-doubt, or perfectionism because the mind sees them as tests of competence. You may think, if I fail at this big project it will prove I'm not capable. But when the task is divided into smaller pieces, failure is reframed as feedback on a single step, rather than a verdict on your ability. Missing one micro-step is far less intimidating than failing at an entire project. This shift in perspective reduces procrastination by making action psychologically safer. Each small success becomes a proof point, reinforcing confidence, motivation, and momentum. The principle of just the next small action is central to overcoming procrastination. It asks you to focus exclusively on the very next thing you can do, rather than the entire task. For example, if you are procrastinating on writing a book, the next small action might be opening a document, writing a single paragraph, or even jotting down a title for the next chapter. The next action is always simple, specific, and achievable. By repeating this approach, you create a chain of momentum. Each completed step fuels the next, and gradually, what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. Progress compounds, motivation increases, and procrastination loses its grip. To apply this principle, begin by clarifying the task. Ambiguity is the enemy of action. Write down exactly what needs to be accomplished and then ask yourself, what is the smallest possible step I can take right now? The answer may be deceptively simple. Open a document, send a single email, outline a single point. The power lies not in the complexity of the step, but in its executability. Action, no matter how small, triggers a cascade of forward momentum that thinking, worrying, or planning alone cannot produce. Another effective technique is mapping the task into micro-steps. Take a large project and divide it into a sequence of actionable items. For instance, planning an event can be overwhelming. You might feel paralyzed by all the moving parts: venue, guest list, catering, promotion. By breaking the project into discrete tasks, choose a date, book a venue, draft guest list, email first 5 invitees, the process becomes manageable. Each completed step is progress, reinforcing competence and reducing procrastination. Over time, these small actions accumulate into significant achievements, demonstrating that even the largest goals are attainable when approached strategically. It is important to recognize that starting small does not mean thinking small. Taking micro steps is not settling for less, it is building a foundation for sustainable action. A single paragraph, a 5-minute outline, or a single phone call is not the end goal. It is the doorway to progress. The key is consistency, not magnitude. When you consistently take small, startable actions, momentum grows. You will find that once you begin, the mind naturally expands, creativity flows, and the next steps become easier. Action breeds action, and the momentum generated by even tiny steps is often stronger than motivation alone. Breaking tasks into startable steps also combats perfectionism. When the mind believes that a task must be perfect from the outset, procrastination intensifies. Every step seems insufficient, every start incomplete, and hesitation becomes habitual. By defining the next action as intentionally small and manageable, you lower the bar for starting. You give yourself permission to begin without perfection. You acknowledge that progress is incremental, that learning happens along the way, and that completion is a process rather than a singular, flawless moment. Perfectionism fades when the focus shifts from the impossible whole to the achievable next step. Emotional resistance also diminishes when you take micro steps. Large tasks often trigger fear, anxiety, and self-doubt, creating a mental barrier that blocks action. When the task is broken into startable pieces, emotional intensity decreases. The first step is achievable, concrete, and under your control. You are not asking yourself to conquer the mountain all at once, you are simply taking the next step. This subtle shift changes the emotional landscape of action. Fear becomes manageable, anxiety becomes navigable, and self-doubt becomes a signal rather than a stop sign. The focus moves from intimidation to empowerment, from hesitation to momentum. Journaling and reflection further enhance the power of microsteps. At the end of each day, record the small actions you took toward your goals. Reflect on what worked, what felt challenging, and how taking these steps influenced your mindset. Over time, this practice creates awareness of your progress, reinforces positive behaviors, and reduces the sense of being stuck. It also allows you to celebrate small victories, proof that action is possible even when motivation feels low. These micro wins are essential in retraining the mind away from procrastination and toward consistent, deliberate action. Another practical strategy is time blocking for micro actions. Allocate a specific, limited window to complete the next step, even if it is only 5 or 10 minutes. Short, defined periods reduce the intimidation factor and increase the likelihood of starting. Often, beginning is the hardest part. Once you start, the momentum carries you further. By committing to a brief, manageable time frame, you bypass the mental barriers that procrastination erects. Time-blocking microsteps also integrates action into your routine, transforming it from an overwhelming obligation into a consistent habit. It is equally important to prioritize next steps strategically. Not all actions carry the same weight or urgency. Determine which microstep will have the most immediate impact, or create a foundation for subsequent actions. By focusing on high-leverage steps, you maximize efficiency and build momentum quickly. Strategic prioritization ensures that progress is visible, tangible, and motivating. Each completed step reinforces your capacity for action, reducing resistance for the next step, and gradually diminishing the power of procrastination. Remember, breaking tasks into startable steps is not a one-time exercise. It is a skill to be practiced continually. New projects, unfamiliar tasks, and evolving goals will always present challenges. Each time you face hesitation, return to the principle, what is the very next small action I can take? This question centers your mind, reduces overwhelm, and transforms fear and resistance into clarity and movement. Over time, The habit of identifying and acting on micro-steps becomes automatic, creating a default mode of action rather than delay. This approach also fosters resilience. When tasks are broken down, setbacks are less intimidating. Missing a step, encountering a challenge, or making a mistake no longer triggers paralysis. You can refocus on the next small action, adjust your plan, and continue forward. Momentum is maintained, progress is cumulative, and confidence grows. In this way, micro-steps not only overcome procrastination but also build emotional strength, mental clarity, and self-trust, the foundations of long-term achievement. By the end of this chapter, the principle is clear. Complexity fuels procrastination, simplicity enables action. Large, vague tasks trigger fear, anxiety, and hesitation, creating mental friction that blocks momentum. By breaking goals into startable steps, you lower the barrier to action, reduce emotional resistance, and create a pathway for consistent progress. The focus is never on completing the whole project at once, but on taking the next small action, specific, achievable, and deliberate. Step by step, micro-step by micro-step, momentum builds, procrastination loses its power, and forward movement becomes inevitable. The journey from procrastination to action begins with clarity, awareness, and simplicity. Each small step you take is a victory over hesitation, fear, and overwhelm. Each micro-action reinforces the belief that you can act, you can progress, and you can succeed. Momentum, confidence, and resilience are cultivated not in leaps, but in measured, deliberate steps. By learning to break tasks into startable actions, you reclaim control over your time, energy, and focus. The next step is always within reach. The first step begins now. Chapter 4: Reframing Motivation and Willpower. We often believe that motivation is the spark that ignites action. We tell ourselves, "I'll start when I feel inspired," or "I need to be in the right mindset to begin." This belief, while common, is one of the greatest traps in the cycle of procrastination. Waiting for motivation to arrive is like waiting for the wind to carry a boat upstream. You will wait indefinitely while the current of delay pulls you further away from your goals. The truth is counterintuitive but liberating. Action often precedes motivation. It is the act of starting, not the feeling of readiness, that generates momentum, builds confidence, and fuels intrinsic motivation. To understand this, consider how our minds respond to behavior versus emotion. Motivation is a feeling, action is a movement. Feelings are fragile, they come and go, influenced by circumstances, mood, energy, and fear. They cannot be reliably summoned on demand. Action, on the other hand, is concrete. It produces results, however small, and these results create feedback that feeds motivation. When you begin, even in a minor way, your brain registers progress. That progress generates dopamine, the chemical of reward, which signals achievement and reinforces behavior. Action produces momentum. Motivation follows. The act of starting transforms hesitation into energy, fear into clarity, and delay into forward motion. The principle of starting before motivation is deeply empowering because it shifts responsibility from feelings to choice. You do not wait to feel like it. You choose to act despite the absence of inspiration. You take control of your behavior rather than surrendering to fluctuating moods. This is the essence of breaking procrastination, choosing deliberate action over waiting for an elusive emotional state. It is the bridge from inaction to progress, from hesitation to consistency, and from intention to accomplishment. One of the most practical ways to implement this principle is the concept of the minimum viable action. Ask yourself, what is the smallest, most basic step I can take right now toward this task? It could be opening a document, sending a single email, or writing a single sentence. The key is that the step is achievable, without needing motivation or energy to be high. Starting small reduces emotional resistance and allows you to enter motion. Often, once that first micro-action is complete, the next step feels easier and motivation naturally follows. Action begets energy, and energy begets more action. Another powerful tool is habit formation. Habits reduce reliance on willpower, which is a limited resource. When you depend on pure willpower, every task feels like a struggle. Willpower can be depleted by stress, fatigue, or decision overload, making procrastination more likely. Habits, by contrast, automate action. They remove the need for motivation to be present. For example, if you make a habit of writing every morning at 7 a.m., you do not need to feel inspired to start. Your behavior is scripted, automatic, and reliable. Over time, the repetition of small, disciplined actions forms a feedback loop that strengthens motivation, reinforces consistency, and builds momentum toward larger goals. Routine is another critical factor. Structuring your day to include regular, predictable periods for important work reduces reliance on fleeting emotions. Motivation is no longer the gatekeeper, action is habitual. When your day is organized around consistent practice, the friction of starting diminishes. You no longer negotiate with yourself each morning about whether you feel ready. The framework is already in place. Action becomes the default mode, and procrastination loses its grip. Even on days when energy is low or emotions are unsettled, your routines carry you forward. Reframing your mindset about motivation is equally important. Many people believe that willpower is the solution to procrastination, but willpower alone is fragile. Relying on it creates a cycle of peaks and troughs, days when you feel strong and capable, followed by days when resistance wins. Instead, view motivation as a consequence, not a prerequisite of action. Every time you take a step, no matter how small, you reinforce the belief that progress is possible. Motivation is not a mystical spark, it is the echo of your choices, the byproduct of movement, and the reward of completion. The act of beginning creates the feeling of readiness, rather than the other way around. Visualization can complement this approach. Imagine yourself beginning a task, even when you feel hesitant. Picture yourself taking the first step, completing it, and feeling a sense of accomplishment. Visualization trains your mind to associate action with progress and reward. It reduces the internal resistance that procrastination thrives on, and strengthens your ability to act despite uncertainty. Over time, the mental rehearsal of starting, completing, and gaining momentum becomes automatic, making the act of beginning less intimidating and more natural. It is also essential to address the internal dialogue that can sabotage action. Thoughts like, "I'm not ready, I need more time," or "I don't feel motivated," are mental barriers. Recognizing them as signals rather than truth is critical. You can acknowledge these thoughts without obeying them. By shifting the focus from whether you feel like starting to the simple question, "What is the next small action I can take?" you bypass the need for emotional readiness. Action becomes a choice, independent of fluctuating feelings. This cognitive shift transforms procrastination from a battle of willpower into a practical, manageable process. Breaking down tasks into startable steps, as discussed in the previous chapter, works hand in hand with reframing motivation. Each micro-step is designed to be achievable without relying on inspiration. The combination of small actions and intentional focus allows momentum to build naturally. Motivation follows as a byproduct of doing. For example, committing to writing a single paragraph, making a short phone call, or completing a brief research task may feel minor, but each completed action produces a sense of accomplishment. That accomplishment fuels the next step, gradually transforming hesitation into habitual forward movement. Time structuring also supports this principle. Techniques like time blocking, the Pomodoro method, or scheduling work in short, defined periods help you act without waiting for motivation. By committing to a specific window for focused action, you remove the question of when I will start from the equation. Once the timer begins, the mind shifts from deliberation to execution. Action takes precedence over feeling. Even 5 or 10 minutes of focused work can trigger momentum, reduce resistance, and generate motivation to continue. These structured practices make action habitual and reliable, bypassing the unpredictability of mood or inspiration. Self-compassion is another essential component. Waiting for motivation often leads to self-criticism. Why can't I get started? I'll never be disciplined. These thoughts increase anxiety, magnify procrastination, and further reduce the likelihood of beginning. Reframing motivation requires kindness. Recognize that hesitation is normal, and that starting is a skill to be practiced, not an innate trait to be summoned. Compassion reduces the emotional weight of procrastination, allowing action to become a choice rather than a source of shame. Every small step forward is a victory, and should be acknowledged as such. Over time, consistently acting before feeling ready reshapes your neural pathways. Each deliberate choice to start reinforces the connection between action and reward, rewiring your brain to respond to opportunity rather than resistance. This neurological shift strengthens self-efficacy, confidence, and intrinsic motivation. You no longer wait for mood or inspiration. Your mind learns that action produces feelings of capability, competence, and progress. In this way, procrastination diminishes, and the habit of deliberate, consistent action becomes dominant. Finally, it is important to remember that reframing motivation is not about forcing yourself to act blindly or ignoring legitimate obstacles. It is about choosing to move forward despite hesitation, recognizing that action generates clarity, energy, and motivation. Each step, no matter how small, is proof that progress is possible. Momentum grows cumulatively, and over time the need to feel ready diminishes entirely. You learn that readiness is created through doing, not waiting. By the end of this chapter, the principle is clear: action precedes motivation. Waiting for inspiration is a trap, starting is the solution. Microsteps, structured routines, habit formation, visualization, time blocking, and self-compassion all support this principle. Motivation is no longer a prerequisite, it becomes the natural result of deliberate, consistent action. Willpower is no longer relied upon as a fragile source of energy. Habits and small wins sustain forward movement. Each step you take reinforces your ability to start again tomorrow, building momentum that grows exponentially over time. The shift in perspective is profound. You no longer wait for the perfect moment, the perfect feeling, or the perfect level of energy. You act, knowing that motion generates momentum. You take the next small step and the next, until hesitation is replaced with forward movement. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Each completed step strengthens confidence, reduces fear, and demonstrates that progress is possible even when conditions are not ideal. The journey from procrastination to action is no longer governed by fleeting feelings. It is guided by deliberate, consistent, and empowered choice. The lesson is simple but life-changing. Start before you feel ready, trust the process, and let momentum carry you. Motivation is the reward of action, not the prerequisite. Every step you take, no matter how small, compounds into progress, confidence, and achievement. Willpower alone cannot sustain you, but deliberate habits, routines, and the discipline of action will. You now have the tools to act despite hesitation, to move forward despite fear, and to let motivation emerge naturally from the momentum you create. Start. Act. Move. Momentum will follow, and procrastination will fade. Chapter 5. overcoming fear of failure and judgment. Fear is one of the most powerful forces, holding you back from action. It is quiet, insidious, and persuasive, often disguising itself as caution, rational thought, or concern for quality. When fear infiltrates your mind, it triggers hesitation, self-doubt, and ultimately procrastination. It whispers, "You're not ready," or "What if you fail?" The irony is that fear itself, rather than the task or the outcome, is often the true barrier. To move from procrastination to action, you must confront fear, not to eliminate it but to understand it, reframe it, and act in spite of it. Fear of failure is deeply ingrained. From childhood, we are conditioned to avoid mistakes and seek approval. We learn that errors are embarrassing, that missteps are punishable, or that imperfection reflects inadequacy. Over time, this conditioning shapes the way we approach challenges. Every time you face a task, your brain scans for potential risks, the possibility of error, the likelihood of judgment, and the consequences of not succeeding. When the potential for failure feels high, hesitation spikes, and procrastination becomes almost automatic. It is not laziness, it is your mind defending you from the emotional sting of risk. Perfectionism amplifies fear. When you believe that every action must be flawless, starting a task becomes a monumental decision. The first draft cannot be rough, the first attempt cannot be messy, the first presentation cannot be imperfect. You convince yourself that waiting, researching, or preparing more is necessary to avoid the shame of falling short. This cycle is a trap. The pursuit of perfection postpones progress and magnifies self-doubt. But perfection is an illusion. Progress requires imperfection. Growth requires mistakes. Action requires courage to move forward despite uncertainty. Fear of judgment is closely tied to fear of failure. You may worry about what others will think of your work, your decisions, or your ability to perform. This anxiety is amplified in the age of constant comparison and visibility. Social media, workplace scrutiny, and cultural expectations can make every action feel like a test. The result is hesitation, delaying, overthinking, or avoiding tasks altogether. But the truth is, most judgment exists in perception, not reality. People are often more focused on themselves than on critiquing you. And even when criticism occurs, it is feedback, not a verdict on your worth or capability. Recognizing this distinction allows you to act with confidence despite fear of judgment. Cognitive reframing is a powerful tool for transforming fear into a catalyst for action. Rather than seeing failure as a final verdict, view it as feedback. Every misstep is information, an opportunity to learn, adjust, and grow. Mistakes are not proof of inadequacy, they are signposts along the path to mastery. By reframing errors as essential components of progress, you reduce the emotional weight of fear. The task is no longer a test of self-worth, it is an experiment in growth. This perspective shifts your mindset from paralysis to curiosity, from avoidance to exploration, and from procrastination to forward movement. Consider the mental dialogue that fear generates. If I try and fail, people will judge me. If I make a mistake, I will be humiliated. Cognitive reframing challenges these thoughts. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that failure is catastrophic? What would happen if I attempted this imperfectly? What could I learn from a mistake? Each question weakens the power of fear, replaces it with perspective, and opens the door to action. Over time, this reframing becomes automatic, reducing hesitation and empowering you to start tasks despite uncertainty. Self-compassion is equally vital in overcoming fear of failure and judgment. Many people respond to fear with self-criticism. I shouldn't feel anxious about this, or why can't I just start? This harsh inner dialogue amplifies paralysis, increases stress, and reinforces procrastination. Compassion, by contrast, provides emotional support, reduces tension, and creates a safe internal environment for action. Treat yourself as you would a friend facing the same challenge, with kindness, encouragement, and patience. Recognize that fear is natural, that hesitation is common, and that taking imperfect action is courageous. Compassion reduces the emotional weight of fear, making it easier to move forward. Another practical strategy is exposure. Fear often thrives in the absence of experience. When you gradually confront tasks that intimidate you, you learn that the consequences of mistakes or judgment are rarely as severe as imagined. Begin with small, low-stakes actions, and progressively tackle more challenging tasks. Each success builds confidence, each lesson reduces the grip of fear, and each completed step demonstrates your capacity to act despite uncertainty. Exposure transforms fear from a barrier into a guide, signaling areas where growth is possible rather than danger is imminent. Visualization complements this approach. Imagine yourself completing a task despite fear, experiencing minor setbacks and responding with calm and focus. Picture yourself receiving feedback, learning from mistakes, and continuing forward with confidence. Visualization trains your mind to experience action emotionally before physically engaging in it. It reduces resistance, enhances courage, and prepares you to act in real-world situations. By repeatedly rehearsing action despite fear, you rewire your mental response, making procrastination less likely and decisive action more probable. It is important to acknowledge that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. Every time you start a task despite hesitation, you strengthen this mental muscle. Each act of bravery reinforces your belief in your own capability, gradually reducing the emotional intensity of fear. Courage compounds. The more you act despite uncertainty, the more natural it becomes. Fear does not disappear. It simply loses its power to control your behavior. Momentum grows, confidence builds, and procrastination weakens. Reflection also plays a critical role. After taking action despite fear, review the experience. What did you learn? What went well? What can be improved? This reflective practice reinforces the principle that fear is information, not prohibition. By examining outcomes objectively, you cultivate resilience, strengthen self-efficacy, and internalize the understanding that mistakes and criticism are components of growth, not indictments of your worth. Reflection turns action into insight, fear into data, and hesitation into knowledge. Accountability and support amplify your ability to act despite fear. Sharing your intentions with a trusted friend, mentor, or coach creates external reinforcement. Accountability provides encouragement, perspective, and gentle pressure to take action. Others can help normalize fear, celebrate courage, and reduce the weight of judgment. You are less likely to succumb to procrastination when someone else bears witness to your commitments, not as a critic, but as a supportive presence guiding you forward. It is also useful to separate identity from performance. Fear often arises when we believe that failing at a task equates to being inadequate. By reframing tasks as opportunities to learn rather than tests of worth, you weaken fear's grip. You are not your mistakes. You are not your setbacks. You are a learner, a doer, and someone capable of growth. This detachment from identity reduces emotional intensity, allowing action to become easier and more consistent. When fear strikes, remind yourself, I am not defined by this single outcome. I am defined by my willingness to act and learn. Consistency is key. Courage is not a one-time event. It is a habit cultivated through repeated action. Each act of bravery, no matter how small, strengthens your capacity to start, endure discomfort, and persist. Momentum compounds, as fear becomes less intimidating with repeated exposure. Over time, your response to fear shifts from avoidance to intentional engagement. You learn that you can act regardless of internal resistance, that mistakes are feedback, and that judgment rarely has the power you once imagined. Courage becomes routine, not exceptional. Finally, remember that fear is not your enemy. It is a signal that you are stepping into meaningful work, challenging yourself, and moving toward growth. The presence of fear often indicates that the task matters, and that progress is being made. By reframing fear as a guide rather than a barrier, practicing self-compassion, exposing yourself to small challenges, and taking consistent action, you transform fear from a force that paralyzes into a force that propels. The act of beginning, despite hesitation, becomes a demonstration of your strength, resilience, and commitment to progress. By the end of this chapter, the path is clear. Fear of failure and judgment is natural, but it does not have to control your life. Procrastination is not a reflection of inadequacy. It is an emotional response that can be understood, reframed, and managed. Cognitive reframing, self-compassion, exposure, visualization, reflection, accountability, and detachment from identity are all tools to transform fear into a catalyst for action. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the deliberate choice to act despite it. Step by step, task by task, action compounds into confidence, momentum, and mastery. The journey from procrastination to action is paved with courage. Each time you act despite fear, you prove to yourself that progress is possible. Each small victory over hesitation strengthens your resilience and diminishes fear's influence. You begin to see failure not as a verdict, but as feedback, judgment not as a threat but as information. Momentum grows, self-trust strengthens, and procrastination loses its grip. Courage becomes habitual. Action becomes inevitable. Fear becomes a signal of growth rather than a barrier to it. And with that understanding, you are empowered to move forward, undaunted, decisive, and capable of achieving more than you ever imagined. Chapter 6: Creating a Supportive Environment. When it comes to taking consistent action, one of the most overlooked factors is the environment around you. Your surroundings, both physical and social, are constantly influencing your behavior, often in ways you barely notice. Cluttered spaces, constant notifications, and even certain people can subtly encourage procrastination, feeding hesitation and delaying progress. Conversely, a thoughtfully structured environment can reduce resistance, cue productive behaviors, and make action feel natural rather than forced. Mastering your environment is not about perfection, it is about creating conditions that make doing the right thing easier and procrastinating harder. The first step in creating a supportive environment is understanding how external cues influence internal states. Human beings are highly responsive to visual and auditory signals. A messy desk can unconsciously increase stress, making the mind feel scattered before you even begin a task. Background noise, like a television or social media alerts, interrupts focus and trains your attention to wander. Conversely, a clean, organized workspace signals to the brain that this is a place for productivity, clarity, and action. Your environment is a silent partner in every decision you make, nudging you toward distraction or focus. By taking deliberate control over these cues, you can align your surroundings with your intentions and reduce the mental friction that fuels procrastination. Technology is another area where environmental influence is particularly strong. Smartphones, social media, and constant notifications are designed to hijack attention. Every ping, alert, or pop-up pulls focus away from meaningful work and reinforces habitual delay. To counteract this, intentional digital boundaries are essential. This could mean turning off notifications during work periods, using website blockers, or designating phone-free times for deep focus. Small adjustments like these significantly reduce the mental load of resisting distraction, freeing your attention to engage fully with the tasks at hand. The environment, when shaped intentionally, can become a powerful ally in taking action consistently. Social influences also play a critical role. The people around you, friends, colleagues, family, have the power to reinforce either procrastination or productivity. If your social circle habitually delays or rationalizes avoidance, it is easy to adopt similar behaviors without realizing it. Conversely, surrounding yourself with motivated, accountable, and disciplined individuals can have a profoundly positive effect on your ability to act. Accountability partners, mentors, or even supportive friends who check in on your progress provide external reinforcement that strengthens your internal drive. Sharing intentions with someone you respect creates a psychological commitment, making procrastination less appealing and action more compelling. Routine and structure are critical elements of an action-supportive environment. When the timing, place, and method of work are consistent, you reduce decision fatigue and remove friction. For example, committing to a dedicated workspace and specific times for focused work signals to your mind that certain hours are reserved for productivity. Over time, this consistency trains your brain to respond automatically, reducing reliance on fluctuating motivation. The act of sitting at the same desk at the same time, with the same mindset, cues your body and mind that this is the space and moment for action. Structured routines transform intention into behavior, making progress predictable rather than sporadic. Physical cues also serve as subtle triggers for productivity. Objects, tools, or visual reminders can prime you for action. A notebook, clean workspace, or an open document ready for writing can prompt initiation. Conversely, disorganization, piles of unrelated materials, or a cluttered digital desktop can unconsciously signal distraction and feed procrastination. Intentional placement of items in your environment, tools within reach, visual reminders of priorities, and cues for immediate action can reduce the mental resistance that often delays starting. These physical signals are not merely aesthetic, they are behavioral scaffolding that guides your choices toward completion rather than avoidance. Lighting, temperature, and comfort also influence focus. Bright, natural light enhances alertness, while dim or inconsistent lighting can induce fatigue or distraction. The physical comfort of your chair, desk, or workspace affects endurance and the ability to maintain concentration for extended periods. Small adjustments, ergonomic seating, proper lighting, and a pleasant environment are not indulgences, they are foundational tools for sustaining action. By respecting the physical body as a partner in productivity, you strengthen your capacity to focus, resist procrastination, and sustain energy for important tasks. A supportive environment also involves reducing access to cues that trigger avoidance. This means identifying your most common distractions and systematically removing them. Social media, unnecessary tabs, idle notifications, or cluttered surroundings all serve as micro-triggers for procrastination. Removing these triggers is not about eliminating fun or leisure, it is about creating a space where focus is easier than delay. When the path of least resistance leads toward action, you naturally build momentum without relying solely on willpower. The environment becomes a co-pilot in achieving consistency and progress. Accountability structures further enhance an environment conducive to action. This does not have to be formal or intimidating. Even simple agreements to report progress to a friend, mentor, or peer create external reinforcement. The knowledge that someone else is aware of your intentions increases commitment and reduces the temptation to delay. In group settings, collaborative accountability can be particularly powerful. When others are working alongside you or sharing progress, the social contract motivates action and strengthens consistency. These external frameworks amplify internal discipline, making your environment an active partner in overcoming procrastination. Environmental support also includes strategic use of reminders and cues for attention. Visual prompts, written notes and checklists act as subtle nudges to maintain focus on priorities. Placing key reminders in visible locations keeps important tasks top of mind, preventing delay from creeping in unnoticed. Auditory cues, like alarms or music associated with productive work, can further signal the brain that it is time to shift into action mode. These simple tools, when aligned with your goals, reduce reliance on fluctuating motivation and reinforce habitual engagement with essential tasks. Isolation from distractions is critical, but collaboration can enhance focus when structured correctly. Setting boundaries around interruptions, creating designated focus time, and communicating availability to others allows for deep work while preserving relationships. These practices signal respect for both your time and priorities, and they shape an environment where consistent action is the default. Mental toughness and anti-procrastination behavior thrive in spaces where boundaries are clear and intentions are supported by tangible structures. Your environment becomes a safety net and springboard, catching hesitation before it grows into delay and propelling you into action. Another dimension of a supportive environment is aligning your environment with your goals and values. The physical, digital, and social surroundings should reflect the outcomes you wish to achieve. If your workspace is cluttered with distractions or reminders of unproductive habits, your mind will unconsciously mirror that disorder. Conversely, surroundings that reinforce purpose, order, and clarity amplify your internal drive and make action intuitive. Surround yourself with cues that represent growth, progress, and achievement. Let the environment reflect the mindset you wish to embody: disciplined, focused, and resilient. Finally, flexibility within structure is essential. A supportive environment is not rigid or punitive. It adapts to your needs while sustaining progress. Allowing short breaks, adjusting physical conditions, or shifting tasks when appropriate ensures that the environment supports sustained engagement rather than creating additional stress. The goal is not perfection in organization but alignment. The surroundings should consistently reduce friction for action and increase the likelihood of focus, energy, and follow-through. When environment, routine, and accountability harmonize, procrastination loses its grip, and momentum becomes inevitable. In summary, creating a supportive environment is about shaping the world around you to reduce friction and enhance productivity. Every aspect, workspace, technology, social influences, physical comfort, reminders, and routines, can either trigger procrastination or promote action. By taking control of these external factors, you make it easier to start, stay focused, and maintain consistency. You no longer rely solely on willpower or fleeting motivation. Your environment works with you, guiding your behavior toward forward movement. The environment is not a crutch, it is a partner. Just as a skilled athlete relies on equipment, coaches, and training spaces, you can leverage your surroundings to optimize your mental and emotional state for action. Thoughtful attention to external cues, both tangible and social, creates a foundation where momentum, courage, and focus become the default mode. Procrastination diminishes not because fear disappears, but because the friction for inaction is removed. Every visual, auditory, and social signal can be harnessed to reinforce intention, align behavior with goals, and support consistent progress. By mastering your environment, you create conditions where procrastination is less tempting, fear is more manageable, and starting becomes automatic. Action becomes easier than delay, momentum compounds naturally, and productivity flows. When your surroundings consistently cue focus, reduce distractions, and support accountability, you empower yourself to act decisively and confidently every day. In this chapter, you have learned that your environment is not passive. It is an active player in the fight against procrastination. By designing it intentionally, you take a powerful step towards sustained action, consistent progress, and the realization of your goals. Chapter 7: Building Consistency Through Habits. Consistency is the secret that separates those who move forward from those who remain stuck. Motivation comes and goes, inspiration fluctuates, willpower is a finite resource. Yet habits, small, deliberate, repeated actions, create momentum that becomes almost automatic. When your actions are rooted in habit, starting no longer requires a heroic effort. You do not wait to feel ready or to summon courage. You act because your habits have created a path for your mind and body to follow. Habits transform effort into routine and intention into unstoppable momentum. They are the bridge between desire and achievement. The first step in building consistency through habits is understanding why habits matter. Human behavior is largely driven by repetition and routine. Your brain craves efficiency, and it naturally conserves energy by automating frequently repeated actions. This is why brushing your teeth, making your bed, or tying your shoes require almost no conscious thought. Habits free your mind from constant decision-making, allowing attention to focus on new challenges. If procrastination thrives in indecision, habits destroy hesitation. They create automaticity, so the right action becomes the default response instead of the exception. Creating effective habits begins with clarity. You must decide precisely what action you want to make habitual. Vague intentions such as "I will work more" or "I will be productive" rarely produce results. Instead, specify concrete, actionable steps. I will write 250 words every morning at 8 a.m. I will spend 20 minutes planning my day after breakfast. Clear, specific actions allow your brain to recognize cues, anticipate the reward, and establish the routine. Ambiguity invites delay, precision invites action. The second principle is starting small. Attempting to overhaul your life overnight is a guaranteed route to procrastination and failure. Instead, focus on micro-actions, small, repeatable behaviors that are easy to initiate. The power of a tiny habit lies in its consistency. Writing just one paragraph, meditating for 2 minutes, or walking for 5 minutes may feel insignificant in isolation, but repeated daily, these micro-actions compound into substantial progress. Success builds confidence, confidence builds momentum, and momentum gradually transforms your capacity for action. Habit stacking is an especially effective strategy. This involves linking a new habit to an existing one, using the established routine as a cue. For example, if you already drink coffee every morning, use that moment as a trigger to review your daily goals. If you brush your teeth at night, follow it with a 2-minute journaling session. Habit stacking leverages existing neurological pathways to embed new actions more seamlessly into your life. It reduces friction and increases the likelihood of repetition, turning effortful beginnings into effortless continuations. Cues are another critical component. Your environment can be designed to remind you of your intentions and prompt action. Place visual reminders in strategic locations, sticky notes on your desk, open notebooks, timers, or checklists. Each cue triggers your brain to initiate the habit, reducing reliance on fleeting willpower. The more intuitive and accessible the cue, the more likely the behavior becomes automatic. Your surroundings become a silent coach, guiding you toward action without requiring conscious effort every time. Rewards reinforce behavior. Every habit benefits from positive reinforcement, whether it is intrinsic or extrinsic. Completing a task can bring satisfaction, pride, or relief. Sometimes small external rewards, like a short break, a walk outside, or a cup of tea, cement the habit by creating a positive feedback loop. The brain learns to associate action with pleasure or benefit, making repetition more likely. This is not indulgence. It is a biological tool that strengthens neural pathways and accelerates habit formation. Consistency is more important than intensity. You do not need to work for hours each day to build a habit. You need to show up reliably. Even a 5-minute effort, repeated daily, creates momentum far more powerful than sporadic bursts of high intensity. Habits compound because they are sustained, not because they are dramatic. Progress is built one action at a time, every day. Missing occasionally is not failure. Returning to the routine is essential. The rhythm of repetition matters far more than perfection in execution. Accountability amplifies habit formation. Sharing your goals and intentions with a trusted person creates an external reinforcement that strengthens commitment. Knowing that someone else is aware of your actions or will check in on your progress makes you more likely to follow through. Accountability partners, coaches, or supportive peers provide encouragement, feedback, and perspective. They act as mirrors and anchors, helping you maintain consistency when internal motivation falters. Accountability transforms individual effort into a shared commitment to growth. It is also essential to track progress. Measurement turns abstract intentions into tangible reality. Use a journal, calendar, or habit tracking app to record each completed action. Seeing a streak build over days and weeks reinforces the habit loop, providing visual evidence of progress and creating psychological momentum. Progress itself becomes a reward, motivating continued effort. Tracking converts consistency into both accountability and inspiration, reminding you that even small, repeated actions matter enormously over time. Resilience is strengthened through repetition. Every habit formation process involves minor setbacks, missed days, or distractions. This is natural. The key is returning to the behavior quickly and without judgment. Each return reinforces your commitment and strengthens the neural pathways underlying the habit. Over time, consistency breeds confidence. You begin to trust yourself to take action, regardless of mood, fear, or external circumstance. Habits are the scaffolding that supports resilience, reducing procrastination by embedding automaticity into daily life. Integration is also critical. Habits work best when aligned with goals, priorities, and values. If your habits are disconnected from your intentions, they will feel meaningless, and motivation will wane. Choose actions that directly support your larger objectives. Writing, exercising, planning, reflecting, or focused work should be selected because they advance what matters to you. When habits and purpose are aligned, the daily effort feels significant, creating intrinsic motivation and reinforcing consistency naturally. Patience is a virtue in habit formation. Neuroscience shows that new behaviors take time to embed in neural circuitry. Initial discomfort, forgetfulness, or inconsistency is normal. What matters is repetition and persistence. Habits do not form overnight. They accumulate, gradually rewiring your brain to respond automatically. Each small step, each repeated action compounds silently until effortful behavior becomes effortless. Success is not instantaneous, it is the inevitable outcome of persistent, repeated practice. Flexibility within structure ensures long-term sustainability. Life is unpredictable, schedules, moods, and energy fluctuate. Habits should accommodate these changes, without breaking the chain of consistency. Adjusting intensity, timing, or methods allows habits to endure without creating stress or guilt. The structure remains, the form adapts. This balance ensures that habits become enduring, integrated aspects of life, rather than temporary or forced behaviors. Visualization enhances habit integration. Imagine performing your habit successfully, feeling the emotions associated with progress, and experiencing the satisfaction of completing the action. Mental rehearsal primes your brain, reducing resistance and reinforcing neural pathways. Visualization bridges intention and action, making habits easier to start and maintain. Rehearsing the feeling of success primes your mind to move into action without hesitation. A key insight is that habits are cumulative. Each small, repeated action builds momentum that propels larger achievements. Starting with micro-steps, reinforcing them with cues and rewards, tracking progress and embedding behaviors into routines, creates an unstoppable force over time. What seems insignificant today, writing a paragraph, making a phone call, or completing a 5-minute task, compounds into substantial achievement over weeks, months, and years. Habits turn consistent, small effort into extraordinary results. Consistency through habits also reduces decision fatigue, the silent culprit behind procrastination. Every choice requires mental energy, every delay costs willpower. Habits automate decisions, removing the need to negotiate with yourself constantly. By embedding the desired action into routine, your mind no longer debates whether to act, it simply follows the established path. This is the ultimate weapon against procrastination. Remove the choice, reduce resistance, and make action automatic. Finally, remember that habit formation is an act of self-trust. Every time you honor a commitment to yourself, even in small ways, you strengthen your belief in your own reliability. Momentum grows, procrastination diminishes, and confidence compounds. Habits are not merely routines. They are declarations to yourself that you are capable, disciplined, and committed. Each repeated action silently reinforces the truth: you are someone who acts, progresses, and achieves. In summary, building consistency through habits transforms the struggle of starting into the effortless flow of action. Motivation, inspiration, and willpower are unreliable. Habits are durable. By starting small, stacking behaviors, creating cues, tracking progress, rewarding effort, and maintaining alignment with purpose, you transform procrastination into consistent movement. Over time, these repeated actions compound, turning small daily efforts into extraordinary outcomes. Habits create a life where starting is automatic, fear loses its grip, and momentum is inevitable. When action becomes routine, success is no longer dependent on fleeting emotion. It becomes the natural outcome of your consistent choices. Chapter 8: Managing Time and Energy Wisely. Time is the one resource we all share equally, yet the way we use it determines whether we feel in control of our lives or trapped by delay. Procrastination is rarely about laziness. It is often about mismanagement of two intertwined forces, time and energy. When we fail to align our priorities with our available energy, overwhelm creeps in, decisions stall, and tasks that matter most are postponed. Managing time wisely is critical, but managing energy, the fuel that powers action, is equally, if not more, essential. Together, these elements create the foundation for consistent progress, momentum, and the ability to act even when motivation fluctuates. The first principle of effective time and energy management is awareness. Before implementing any strategies, you must understand how you currently spend your time and where your energy peaks and troughs occur. Many people assume they should push through fatigue or tackle demanding tasks whenever convenient, but this is a recipe for procrastination. Keeping a journal or tracking your day in detail for even a week reveals patterns that are often invisible: moments when focus is high, energy dips, distractions dominate, or tasks get delayed. Awareness transforms vague frustration into actionable insight. When you know your patterns, you can plan around them, rather than against them. Time blocking is a powerful tool for aligning effort with intention. This involves setting aside specific periods of the day for particular tasks, rather than reacting to what feels urgent in the moment. By dedicating uninterrupted blocks of time to focused work, you signal to your brain that these tasks are priorities. Within these blocks, remove distractions, silence notifications, clear your workspace, and communicate availability to others. The brain thrives on structure. When you create defined periods for action, you reduce the mental friction that often leads to delay. Time blocking turns intention into habit by embedding action into a predictable schedule. Prioritization is the second key principle. Not all tasks are equal, and treating them as if they are fuels procrastination. Every day presents a long list of possibilities, but some actions are far more impactful than others. High-priority tasks should align with long-term goals, personal values, and meaningful outcomes. By identifying the few actions that matter most, the big rocks, and scheduling them first, you ensure progress on what truly counts. Lower priority and less meaningful tasks can be delegated, delayed, or eliminated. The clarity of knowing what matters prevents the mental paralysis that arises when every task feels urgent. Energy management is just as important as time management, because even the most carefully scheduled day fails if your energy is insufficient to act. Each person has natural peaks and troughs in focus, alertness, and motivation. Some individuals are most productive in the early morning, others late at night. Understanding your personal rhythm allows you to schedule high-focus, high-effort tasks during your peak periods, and reserve lower energy times for routine or administrative work. Respecting your energy cycles is not indulgence, it is strategic efficiency. Working against your natural energy is the fastest path to delay and frustration. Decision fatigue is another silent enemy of action. Each choice we make consumes mental energy, leaving fewer resources for sustained focus and effective action. Constantly deciding what to do next, what to prioritize, or how to approach a task can become exhausting, leading to procrastination as a form of avoidance. Reducing unnecessary decisions through routines, pre-planned schedules, or simplified systems conserves energy for meaningful action. Meal prepping, preparing clothing the night before, or establishing morning and evening rituals are small examples of reducing daily mental load. Every eliminated decision is an investment in clarity, focus, and action. Delegation and elimination are tools that protect both time and energy. Not every task needs to be completed by you, and not every obligation contributes meaningfully to your goals. Learning to say no, to delegate, or to simplify commitments creates breathing room for high-priority actions. By removing low-value or energy-draining tasks, you prevent fatigue and overwhelm, making it easier to act consistently on what matters most. The ability to focus on fewer tasks with more intensity is a hallmark of effective, action-oriented individuals. Breaks and recovery are also essential for sustainable productivity. Trying to push through exhaustion or mental fog does not increase output, it reduces it. Strategic breaks, exercise, hydration, and periods of reflection restore focus and replenish energy. Short, deliberate pauses between tasks reset the mind, prevent burnout, and improve overall effectiveness. Think of your energy as a battery. Constant use without recharging reduces performance. By scheduling intentional recovery, you ensure that your energy is available for the tasks that require it most. Batching similar tasks together is another powerful technique. Grouping repetitive or low-focus activities, such as emails, administrative work, or calls, reduces the cognitive cost of task switching. Switching between unrelated tasks drains energy and slows progress, making procrastination more likely. By batching, you create efficiency and reduce decision fatigue, preserving mental clarity for high-impact actions. Batching is a structural habit that transforms time and energy from obstacles into allies, allowing you to act decisively without unnecessary friction. Visualization and planning at the start of the day or week enhance both time and energy management. Before starting, review your schedule, prioritize key tasks and mentally rehearse high-effort actions. Visualization prepares the brain for focused execution, reduces anxiety, and increases confidence in your ability to follow through. Mentally simulating the completion of tasks strengthens motivation and primes the mind to act, even when initial resistance arises. When paired with time blocking and energy alignment, visualization creates a powerful framework for consistent action. Energy is not merely physical, it is emotional and mental as well. Procrastination often stems from emotional avoidance. Tasks feel overwhelming, unpleasant, or anxiety-inducing. Addressing these emotional barriers involves reframing tasks as opportunities for growth, learning, or meaningful progress rather than burdens. Mindfulness, deep breathing, or brief meditation can reduce stress and emotional resistance, conserving energy for action rather than internal struggle. By cultivating emotional resilience alongside energy awareness, you create a sustainable system for consistent productivity. Time and energy management also benefit from reflection. At the end of each day or week, review what went well, what caused delay, and where energy was drained. Reflection allows you to adjust your scheduling, routines, and environment to better support action. Continuous refinement ensures that your system evolves with your goals and circumstances, keeping procrastination at bay. Reflection is not criticism, it is calibration, a strategic tool to align your time, energy, and priorities with consistent action. Creating energy buffers is another technique to prevent procrastination. High-intensity tasks often require sustained focus and effort. Approaching them without preparation or rest increases the likelihood of delay. By building short energy reserves through quick walks, hydration, brief movement, or deep breaths, you ensure readiness for demanding work. These buffers prevent resistance and maintain momentum, especially during tasks that naturally trigger hesitation. By respecting your energy limits, you act from strength rather than exhaustion. Strategic use of deadlines enhances focus. Open-ended tasks are fertile ground for procrastination because they provide no external pressure. By setting realistic, time-bound deadlines, you create a sense of urgency that aligns effort with attention. Deadlines should be designed to challenge, without overwhelming, stimulating action rather than stress. Combined with time blocking and prioritization, deadlines become a motivational scaffold, ensuring consistent movement toward goals. Finally, aligning your schedule with your life's purpose magnifies both energy and time. Every task should connect to meaningful outcomes, whether personal, professional, or creative. When the purpose behind your actions is clear, energy flows more naturally, focus deepens, and procrastination loses its grip. Meaning amplifies discipline, energy follows intention. Aligning daily action with long-term goals transforms ordinary tasks into purposeful steps forward, making consistent execution both easier and more fulfilling. In summary, procrastination often arises not from laziness, but from misaligned priorities, mismanaged energy, and structural inefficiencies. By managing time and energy wisely, through awareness, prioritization, time blocking, batching, environmental cues, energy alignment, recovery, reflection, and purpose, you create conditions where action becomes natural rather than a struggle. Momentum emerges because tasks are approached strategically, energy is allocated intentionally, and the mind is prepared to act. Time and energy are your most precious resources. Protect them, plan them, and harness them. Design your days to align with your natural rhythms, reduce friction, and maximize focus. Build routines that automate action, eliminate unnecessary decisions, and provide accountability. Recognize that each small, deliberate choice compounds into significant progress over time. When you manage both time and energy with intention, procrastination loses its power, fear diminishes, and consistent action becomes inevitable. By mastering these principles, You no longer wait for motivation or inspiration to strike. You act because your time is structured, your energy is managed, and your environment is optimized to support movement. The cycle of delay is broken. Momentum takes over. Progress becomes habitual, sustainable, and unstoppable. Chapter 9: Learning to Restart After Setbacks. Momentum is fragile. One missed day, one lapse in focus, one delay, and it can feel as though everything you've built is crumbling. You planned, you acted, you built habits, and suddenly, through fatigue, distraction, or life's unexpected demands, you slip. The temptation to give up entirely is powerful. It whispers, "You failed, it's too late, just start fresh tomorrow." But here is the truth: momentum is never truly lost. Action is always recoverable, and every setback contains the seed of renewal. The ability to restart, to get moving again after a pause, is one of the most powerful skills in overcoming procrastination. Setbacks are not anomalies, they are inevitable. Life is unpredictable, emotions fluctuate, energy ebbs and flows, and obstacles appear without warning. Even the most disciplined and motivated individuals experience delays. Recognizing this is liberating. Setbacks are not evidence of inadequacy or laziness, they are simply part of the journey. Accepting this reality removes guilt and shame, which are often the silent drivers of prolonged procrastination. Once you accept that setbacks happen, you shift your focus from self-criticism to problem-solving. Recovery becomes the priority, and restarting becomes an achievable, even empowering action. Understanding why momentum breaks is the first step toward recovering it. Setbacks often arise from fatigue, overcommitment, poor planning, or emotional overwhelm. Occasionally, they come from external events beyond your control. Other times they occur because your internal systems, habits, routines, or focus structures are not yet fully established. By analyzing the cause without judgment, you gain clarity. What triggered the lapse? Was it exhaustion, distraction, fear, or overwhelm? Pinpointing the cause allows you to respond intelligently rather than reactively, giving you control over the restart process. Restarting begins with mindset. The words you say to yourself in the moment of a setback determine whether you spiral further or regain control. Replace self-criticism with self-inquiry. Instead of thinking, "I've ruined everything," consider, "What is the smallest next step I can take right now?" This shift transforms despair into empowerment. Action does not require perfection, it only requires presence. Momentum is built one step at a time, and every small action, however imperfect, reignites forward motion. One of the most effective techniques for restarting is micro-action. After a setback, the thought of resuming a large, overwhelming task can be paralyzing. Instead, focus on the smallest possible step that counts as progress. Write one paragraph, make one phone call, open one document, or complete a single subtask. These micro-actions are deceptively powerful. They create movement, rebuild confidence, and signal to your brain that you are capable of action, even when motivation is low. Momentum does not return all at once, it grows through repeated, deliberate micro-steps. Forgiveness is another cornerstone of restarting. You cannot move forward effectively while trapped in guilt or regret. A setback is not a moral failing, it is an event. Treat yourself with the same compassion you would extend to a friend. Recognize the lapse, extract any lessons, and release the judgment. This emotional reset frees your energy for action rather than punishment. Self-compassion strengthens resilience. It reminds you that the journey is non-linear, progress is cumulative, and one pause does not erase all previous effort. Re-establishing routines is critical after a setback. Momentum often breaks when structure falters. Habits and systems are the scaffolding that carry action through fatigue, distraction, or fear. After a lapse, revisit your routines. Reinforce your cues, rebuild your time blocks, and revisit your prioritized tasks. Even if you do not feel motivated, performing a familiar routine signals to your brain that action is expected, reducing the friction of starting again. Routines make momentum easier to regain because they remove ambiguity and decision-making from the equation. Reflection strengthens the restart process. After a setback, take a moment to consider what led to the break. Were there warning signs you ignored? Were energy levels mismanaged? Did perfectionism, fear, or external stressor contribute? Reflection is not self-punishment, it is intelligence in action. By understanding the circumstances that led to the pause, you can implement adjustments that reduce the likelihood of repeated disruption. Reflection transforms setbacks from obstacles into lessons, turning mistakes into strategic advantages. Visualization is a potent tool for recovery. Imagine yourself completing the task, feeling the sense of accomplishment, and experiencing the relief of forward momentum. Mental rehearsal prepares your mind for action, reducing resistance and increasing confidence. By vividly picturing the act of starting and the satisfaction of progress, you create a psychological bridge that carries you from hesitation to action. Visualization primes your brain for success, making the restart less daunting and more natural. Momentum is cumulative, and it builds most effectively through repeated cycles of action and recovery. Each time you restart after a pause, you reinforce resilience. The brain learns that temporary setbacks are manageable, not catastrophic. This experience rewires your internal narrative. Where once you may have thought, if I stop, I fail completely, you now understand, I can pause, reset, and move forward again. Restarting is a skill, and like any skill, it strengthens with practice. Accountability accelerates recovery. Share your goal or current challenge with someone who can support and check in with you. Accountability transforms a private struggle into a shared commitment. The knowledge that someone else is aware of your action or inaction creates external motivation and reinforces the internal drive to restart. Even a brief conversation or progress update can reignite momentum, reminding you that your goals matter and that you are capable of action. Energy management is crucial during restarts. Lapses often coincide with exhaustion, burnout, or stress. Before attempting to resume high-intensity work, ensure that your energy is restored. Short breaks, movement, hydration, and proper nutrition can make the difference between a reluctant restart and an effortless return to action. By aligning your energy with your effort, you reduce resistance and increase the probability of success. A well-rested, focused mind is far more likely to act decisively than one operating on depletion and guilt. Micro-rewards reinforce the restart. Celebrate each step taken after a setback, no matter how small. Completing even minor tasks generates positive feedback that motivates continued action. Rewards do not need to be extravagant. A short walk, a favorite snack, or a moment of reflection can suffice. The brain associates effort with positive outcomes, strengthening the neural pathways for action. Small celebrations remind you that every restart counts, that progress is happening, and that you are capable of overcoming delays. Perspective is everything. One missed day or even a week does not erase months of effort or skill building. Life is non-linear, and so is progress. Shifting perspective from perfection to resilience transforms setbacks from catastrophic failures into temporary interruptions. Every restart is evidence of growth, determination, and capability. Momentum is never truly lost, it only waits for your next deliberate action. This mindset reduces fear and guilt, allowing action to flow naturally rather than under pressure or self-criticism. Consistency in recovery builds confidence. Each successful restart reinforces your belief in your ability to act, despite resistance. You internalize the truth that procrastination is temporary, that hesitation does not define you, and that progress is always possible. Confidence grows not from perfection, but from repeated evidence of action after delay. Each recovery is a mini-victory, proof that setbacks are not endpoints but opportunities to strengthen resolve. Finally, integrate setbacks into your overall system of momentum. Anticipate interruptions as a natural part of life. Build buffers into your schedule, develop fallback routines, and maintain flexible expectations. Accept that breaks, delays, or failures will occur, but they are not signs of inadequacy, they are signals for recalibration. By designing a system that accommodates recovery, you make momentum resilient. It is no longer dependent on uninterrupted streaks, external motivation, or perfect circumstances. Momentum becomes a function of structure, intention, and resilience. In conclusion, setbacks are not the end of your journey, they are part of it. Momentum is fragile, but it is recoverable. By understanding why setbacks happen, approaching recovery with self-compassion, focusing on micro-actions, leveraging routines and accountability, managing energy, and reflecting without judgment, you can restart effectively and confidently. Every restart is progress, every action matters, and every lapse is an opportunity to strengthen resilience. Learning to restart transforms your relationship with procrastination. You no longer fear delay or interruptions. You know that action can begin again, that progress is cumulative, and that momentum is within your control. In embracing setbacks as temporary pauses, rather than permanent failures, you step into a new level of mastery over your time, your energy, and your ability to act. Restarting is not merely a recovery technique, it is a declaration of resilience, determination, and commitment to consistent forward motion. Momentum is not a fragile state of being, it is a skill you can cultivate. Each restart rebuilds it stronger than before. Each deliberate action reinforces your capacity to act under any circumstances. When you master the art of restarting, procrastination loses its power, delay becomes manageable, and your life begins to move in the direction of purpose and accomplishment. You are capable, resilient, and unstoppable. Every moment is a chance to restart, and every restart brings you closer to the life you intend to live. Chapter 10: Sustaining Action Over the Long Term. The journey from procrastination to consistent action is not a single leap, it is a continuous path. Momentum can be gained in days or weeks, but sustaining action over months and years is what separates temporary bursts of productivity from a life of purposeful accomplishment. Freedom from procrastination is not built overnight, it is constructed steadily, brick by brick, through habits, mindset, and intentional systems that reinforce your capacity to act. In this chapter, we explore how to maintain momentum, create long-term alignment with purpose, and turn consistent action into a defining part of your identity. The first principle of sustaining action is reflection. Without pausing to observe your progress, you drift. Reflection is not about criticizing yourself for what hasn't been done, it is about understanding what works, what doesn't, and what needs adjustment. By reviewing your daily, weekly, or monthly actions, you gain clarity on patterns of behavior. Did you overcommit and burn energy too quickly? Did certain times of day consistently produce your best results? Did fear or perfectionism reappear, slowing your momentum? Honest reflection allows you to recognize successes and identify friction points, turning every pause into an opportunity for strategic adjustment. Reflection naturally leads to refinement. No system, habit, or schedule is perfect from the outset. Sustaining action requires willingness to iterate. Perhaps your time blocking needs adjustment to fit your energy levels, or your micro-action steps need to be more granular to prevent overwhelm. Maybe your accountability system needs reinforcement, or your reward structure requires tweaking to keep motivation high. Each adjustment is a small calibration that strengthens your system, making consistent action easier and more resilient to life's unpredictability. The person who sustains momentum is not flawless. They are observant, adaptive, and persistent. Long-term vision is the compass that guides sustainable action. Daily tasks can feel meaningless without context, and even small setbacks can feel catastrophic. When your actions are anchored in a clear vision, every step gains purpose. Take time to define what you truly want to achieve in months and years, not just in tasks completed, but in skills developed, relationships nurtured, and personal growth attained. This vision acts as a guiding light, making ordinary tasks meaningful and mundane actions potent. When your daily actions connect to your larger purpose, consistency becomes less about discipline and more about alignment. Alignment between daily action and long-term purpose also reduces procrastination. Tasks that feel irrelevant or disconnected naturally invite delay. By ensuring that each action, no matter how small, supports a larger objective, you create intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, the sense that what you do matters, drives perseverance when external rewards are absent. When momentum is tied to purpose, it becomes self-reinforcing. Completing one task not only advances goals but also strengthens identity. I am someone who acts even when it's difficult because my actions align with what I value most. This identity-based reinforcement is more durable than fleeting bursts of motivation. Sustaining action also requires managing energy, not just time. Many individuals maintain momentum for days or weeks, only to burn out because they neglect the fuel behind their productivity. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, and recovery are not optional, they are essential. A tired, depleted mind cannot sustain focus, and a fatigued body resists movement. To maintain action over the long term, create routines that protect energy, schedule high-focus tasks during peak alertness, and honor recovery as an investment in future progress. Energy management is not indulgence, it is strategic preservation that enables consistent execution. Accountability, over the long term, amplifies sustainability. Short-term bursts of motivation can carry action for a week or two, but accountability provides the external reinforcement that carries you through periods of low energy, uncertainty, or resistance. Accountability partners, mentors, or even public commitments create a sense of responsibility that reinforces internal drive. They remind you that your goals are important not only to yourself, but also to others who support your growth. This network of reinforcement transforms isolated effort into a sustainable system of action. Resilience is the linchpin of long-term consistency. Even the most carefully managed systems encounter disruptions. Illness, personal emergencies, unexpected work demands, or emotional setbacks. Resilience is not the ability to prevent these disruptions, it is the capacity to recover quickly and re-engage with your goals. Maintaining long-term action requires cultivating the mindset that temporary lapses do not define you. Every restart, every micro-action after a pause, reinforces resilience. Momentum is not linear, it ebbs and flows. The sustained achiever learns to navigate these waves without losing direction. Tracking progress is another essential component. Small, consistent actions accumulate, but without measurement, growth can feel invisible. Document achievements, note tasks completed, and celebrate micro-wins. Seeing tangible progress reinforces the connection between effort and outcome, strengthening both confidence and motivation. Tracking also creates accountability to yourself. It is a visible record that proves your capacity to act consistently, even when you feel discouraged. Over time, this record becomes a source of pride and an anchor for future momentum. Sustainability requires a balance between action and reflection, effort and rest, discipline and flexibility. Rigid systems that ignore human needs lead to burnout. Overly flexible systems invite procrastination. The art of long-term momentum lies in harmonizing structure and adaptability. Build routines that automate productive behavior, but leave space to adjust when life demands it. Cultivate habits that make starting effortless, but accept that occasional lapses are natural. This balance ensures that momentum is not dependent on perfect conditions, fleeting motivation, or constant self-discipline alone. Identity transformation is the ultimate reinforcement for sustained action. Consistency over time changes not just your outcomes but your self-concept. As you repeatedly act, even when motivation wanes, your identity shifts from someone who struggles with procrastination to someone who takes initiative, embraces responsibility, and follows through. Identity-driven action is more sustainable than behavior based purely on external rewards or short-term motivation. When "I am the kind of person who acts" becomes true at a core level, procrastination loses its power. Action is no longer a choice, it becomes a reflection of who you are. Long-term action also depends on celebrating growth. Progress, no matter how incremental, deserves recognition. Acknowledging your effort reinforces the positive neural pathways that support consistent behavior. Celebrate not only completed tasks, but also successful recovery from setbacks, moments of courage, and disciplined adherence to routines. Gratitude for your own persistence strengthens self-belief, energizes motivation, and makes action feel rewarding rather than burdensome. The celebration of growth ensures that consistency is a source of joy, not obligation. Reflection on purpose and values keeps long-term action meaningful. As life evolves, so do your goals, priorities, and circumstances. Periodically reassess what matters most to you, adjusting your daily actions accordingly. Sticking to outdated objectives without reflection breeds resistance and fatigue. Alignment between evolving values and current action ensures that momentum remains purposeful and compelling. When your work serves a meaningful objective, action becomes easier, resistance diminishes, and procrastination loses its relevance. Another crucial element is flexibility in methods. While your commitment to consistent action should remain steadfast, the specific strategies for execution can and should adapt to changing circumstances. Perhaps you discover new tools, shift your energy peaks, or adopt different time-blocking techniques. Flexibility allows momentum to persist even as life demands change. Rigid adherence to a failing method breeds frustration and delay. Adaptive persistence ensures continuity of action. Finally, maintain a growth mindset. Long-term momentum is not about perfection, it is about learning, adjusting, and progressing. Challenges, mistakes, and interruptions are opportunities to refine your system, strengthen resilience, and reinforce your identity as someone who acts. Each experience adds to your capacity for consistent action, and each adaptation increases your ability to respond effectively to future obstacles. Growth mindset transforms every setback into a stepping stone, making sustained action inevitable. In conclusion, sustaining action over the long term is a dynamic process that combines reflection, energy management, strategic routines, accountability, resilience, alignment with purpose, and identity reinforcement. It is not a matter of motivation alone, nor of occasional bursts of effort. It is a holistic system that integrates mindset, habits, and environment to make action consistent, sustainable, and fulfilling. Freedom from procrastination is built gradually, through repeated choices, deliberate action, and the willingness to recover from lapses. By mastering these principles, you no longer wait for ideal circumstances, bursts of inspiration, or perfect energy levels. You act consistently because your systems, habits, identity, and purpose all support forward motion. Momentum becomes self-reinforcing, setbacks are recoverable, and action is the default state of your life. Over time, this consistent action transforms not only your results but your sense of self. You become someone who acts, who perseveres, and who achieves regardless of fear, doubt, or delay. Sustained action is freedom. It frees you from the guilt and stress of procrastination, empowers you to shape your life intentionally, and strengthens the belief that you are capable of consistent progress. Every day you choose to act, you reinforce your identity, build confidence, and create tangible outcomes. By committing to this long-term approach, you ensure that momentum is not temporary but lasting, and that the habit of action becomes an inseparable part of who you are. When you look back months or years from now, you will realize that freedom from procrastination was never about fighting laziness. It was about learning to manage your energy, align with purpose, structure your environment, recover from setbacks, and cultivate identity-driven action. It was about understanding that every small step matters, that consistency compounds, and that deliberate effort shapes both your life and your sense of self. By embracing these principles, you claim the ability to act consistently, confidently, and courageously, every day for the rest of your life. Momentum is not fleeting when it is cultivated with intention. It is a skill, a system, and an identity. With time, persistence, and self-compassion, sustained action becomes natural and procrastination becomes a distant memory. You now have the tools, strategies, and mindset to continue forward, no matter what challenges arise, and to live a life defined not by delay, but by deliberate, purposeful action. Conclusion: you are an action taker now. Take a moment and reflect on the journey you've just completed. When you first opened this book, procrastination may have felt like a weight you could not shake, a constant whisper telling you to delay, to wait, to hesitate. Tasks felt overwhelming, days slipped away unnoticed, and motivation seemed like an elusive force only accessible to others. You may have thought, "I can't do this. I don't have enough willpower. I'll start tomorrow." But now, as you reach the end of this journey, something has changed. You are no longer the person who waits endlessly for perfect conditions, fleeting inspiration, or an ideal emotional state. You are an action taker. You have learned the tools, the mindset, and the strategies to start, to continue, and to thrive, even when motivation is low. This transformation did not happen overnight, and it was not magic. It was deliberate, layered, and cumulative. Each chapter you absorbed, each strategy you practiced, each reflection and adjustment you made built the foundation for sustainable action. You have learned that procrastination is not a character flaw. It is a habit, a conditioned response to discomfort, fear, or overwhelm. And habits, no matter how entrenched, can be rewritten. You now understand the mechanics of your own mind, how emotions drive behavior, how fear and perfectionism create resistance, and how even small, consistent steps can break the cycle of delay. This knowledge is power, and it is yours to wield. One of the most important realizations you have gained is that action does not require perfect circumstances. You no longer need to feel ready to begin. You have seen the principle that starting first, even imperfectly, creates momentum that fuels motivation. Action is not a product of inspiration, it is the source of it. Every time you take that first step, no matter how small, you are training your mind to respond, to create, and to build. Action begets action, and each micro-step compounds into confidence, progress, and results. You have learned to embrace that principle, and it will carry you far beyond the pages of this book. Setbacks no longer intimidate you. You understand that delay, interruption, or failure is not an endpoint. It is a signal, a chance to reflect, recalibrate, and restart. You have practiced restarting after lapses, breaking tasks into micro-steps, and forgiving yourself for temporary pauses. Each restart reinforces resilience, strengthens identity, and proves that momentum is recoverable. No longer do you see a missed day as evidence of failure. Instead, you recognize it as part of a non-linear journey toward mastery over your time, focus, and actions. This shift in perspective alone is revolutionary. It frees you from the guilt, shame, and self-criticism that have chained procrastinators for years. You have cultivated systems and structures that support long-term action. Your environment, routines, and habits are no longer passive aspects of your life, they are your allies. You have learned how to design spaces that minimize distraction, schedules that align with your energy, and routines that automate productive behavior. Accountability has become a tool, not a threat. Reflection and review are no longer burdensome. They are instruments of insight that ensure your actions remain purposeful and aligned with your long-term goals. Through these practices, you have built a framework that makes procrastination increasingly irrelevant, giving your intentions and efforts a solid foundation. Your mindset has transformed alongside your behavior. You have embraced the concept of identity-based action, the realization that you are not someone who procrastinates, you are someone who acts. This shift is profound because identity is self-reinforcing. When you see yourself as an action taker, your choices align with that identity, creating a positive feedback loop. Small steps are no longer isolated actions, they are affirmations of who you are becoming. This transformation is subtle, but its impact is enormous. The way you approach tasks, challenges, and opportunities will be permanently different, because you now operate from the understanding that consistent action defines progress, not perfection. Perfection, you now realize, is not the standard of success, progress is. Waiting for ideal conditions, flawless plans, or perfect readiness was never the path to achievement. It was a trap that kept you stuck. Action, even messy or imperfect, moves you forward. Every task you start, every goal you pursue, every challenge you face, even when results are uncertain, cements your identity as someone who acts. Momentum grows from these deliberate choices, and over time it becomes second nature. You have learned to honor effort, courage, and consistency above all else, because they are the true drivers of transformation. Emotions are no longer obstacles but signals. You have learned to acknowledge fear, anxiety, doubt, and overwhelm, without letting them dictate your behavior. These emotions, once triggers for delay, now serve as indicators that attention, preparation, or action is needed. You respond thoughtfully, not reactively. You have practiced techniques to regulate your emotional state, regain calm, and take deliberate steps despite discomfort. The voice that once whispered "wait" or "don't try" has been transformed. You now hear it as information, not instruction, a signal to act with awareness, not a command to stop. Sustaining action over time requires vision. You have learned the importance of aligning daily behavior with long-term purpose. Tasks are no longer meaningless, they are steps toward a life you choose intentionally. Your actions now have context, direction, and meaning. This alignment ensures that consistency is not a burden, but a natural expression of your goals, values, and identity. Motivation becomes intrinsic, because every step you take serves something larger than the immediate moment. You are no longer driven solely by fleeting inspiration, you are propelled by clarity, intention, and purpose. You have also developed resilience, the knowledge that temporary setbacks do not define you. Life will continue to present obstacles, interruptions, and challenges. There will be days when energy is low, distractions are high, or motivation is minimal. You are prepared. You have practiced recovery, micro-action, and self-compassion. You know that each restart is a victory, that every small step counts, and that consistency is far more powerful than occasional bursts of effort. Momentum is no longer fragile, it is a skill you cultivate daily. You understand that setbacks are opportunities, not punishments, and that your capacity to act strengthens with each recovery. By now, you are equipped with strategies for the long term, breaking tasks into micro steps, designing supportive environments, managing energy and focus, reviewing and adjusting your approach, leveraging accountability, and aligning your daily actions with purpose. You have learned that procrastination is not a permanent state. It is a habit to be managed, understood, and redirected. You have internalized that action, not perfection, defines progress. You have experienced firsthand that deliberate steps create momentum, confidence, and results. This knowledge is transformative. It gives you freedom, power, and control over your life. Now the challenge, and the opportunity, lies in living it. Knowledge alone is not enough. The practice of action is what changes outcomes. Each day presents choices: to act, to delay, to hesitate, or to move. You now possess the mindset, strategies, and resilience to make the choice that aligns with your identity as an action taker. Every small task completed, every goal pursued, every restart after hesitation reinforces the truth that you are capable, committed, and unstoppable. Your actions compound into results, and your consistent effort becomes the force that shapes your life. Embrace this truth fully. Action is your new default. Procrastination no longer defines you. It no longer controls your life. You have learned to start without waiting, to continue despite fear, to rebuild momentum after setbacks, and to align daily effort with your larger purpose. You have learned to observe, adjust, and sustain action over time. You have developed the confidence to act even when conditions are imperfect, and the resilience to recover quickly when life interrupts your plans. You are no longer waiting for permission, clarity, or motivation. You are moving forward because action is who you are. Remember that the journey is ongoing. There will always be new challenges, unforeseen obstacles, and moments of hesitation. But you now possess the skills and mindset to navigate them with confidence. The habits you have formed, the strategies you have practiced, and the identity you have embraced will guide you forward. Momentum is a skill, not a gift, and you have cultivated it. You are an action taker now, a person who acts consistently, recovers from setbacks, and continues to progress no matter what arises. Finally, let this be your mantra as you move forward: progress, not perfection; action, not hesitation; consistency, not fleeting bursts. These principles will serve as your compass. Whenever doubt arises, whenever fear or procrastination whispers in your ear, return to these truths. Begin. Continue. Restart. Move forward. Action is your proof of capability, your engine of transformation, and the pathway to fulfillment. You are no longer a passive observer of your life. You are an active creator. As you close this book and step into the next chapter of your life, know this: you are capable, resilient, and unstoppable. You have transformed procrastination from a barrier into a teacher, delay into insight, and hesitation into momentum. You are an action taker. You are someone who starts even when it's uncomfortable, who continues even when energy fades, and who rebuilds momentum even after interruption. This identity is now yours. Wear it proudly. Practice it consistently. And remember, every moment you choose to act, you redefine what is possible. Go forward with courage, with purpose, and with the unwavering commitment to take action. Your future is built by the choices you make today, the small steps you take consistently, and the courage you show in moving despite fear. You are no longer waiting. You are doing. You are unstoppable. You are an action taker now. Thank you for reading this book. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave us a review. TM Light. Disclaimer. This book was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. While every effort was made to ensure the accuracy and relevance of the content, readers should note that this cannot be considered professional advice. Readers are encouraged to apply their own judgment and consult experts where needed.